You guys ready to go over here?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right, you guys ready to go over here?
Yes.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and call to order our city council business meeting for Thursday, May 18th, 2023. It is 6 p.m. Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Lester.
Here.
Baker.
Here.
Reva. Here. Cool.
Here.
Livingston. Here. Mayor Tom Phillips.
I am here. We have quorum, so we'll move on. Item number 2 is Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands.
All right, item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Would anybody like to move any of the consent agenda items to the regular agenda? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion. Second.
Motion by Livingston, second by Reva. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same. Motion carries. Item 4, it's a dedicated work session tonight. So this is a dedicated work session for mayor and council. Regular city council meeting will begin following the work sessions. However, we may take a break. No, never mind that. Item A is an updated social media and website policy discussion. So Holly is handling this discussion item and she's on Zoom. So Holly, you have the floor.
Okay, hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm out of the state, so it should be okay though here. Yeah, so basically we've just made some changes to our existing social media policy. We are in the works to create a website policy as well. The city's never had a website policy before, so we're just kind of working through all the legal lingo in that one. But the most important piece right now is just getting the social media policy updated. It's a few years old, so there's just some standard changes that needed to be made, with titles and things like that within in terms of contact and management. But there are a few new sections that you can see in the policy. I included in the packet the proposed changes to the new policy and the old policy as well beneath that. So you can kind of see which sections are changed, and we highlighted in yellow kind of those primary sections that either changed significantly or we added some new language and some new components to that policy. So just to kind of give you an overview of what is being added or changed in there. If you go to, I don't know, Luke, if you have this pulled up or not, I have a separate set of notes. Yep, you do. Okay. So Roman numeral 6, which is responding to comments. So we did add some language in for this because what we did is on the direct messaging on social media sites that are specific to the official City of Norwalk pages, so Facebook, and then the others that are a little bit less active, but mainly Facebook. So just the official city one, we selected to turn off the direct messaging on that with a call to action that sends viewers directly over to the city's contact page on our website. That way they can communicate with us directly on that. But the reason why we turned off that direct messaging is because people were sending questions all over the board of various topics that they had questions directly to the city for, but that meant that somebody had to be watching that 24/7. And if you missed a question, people get kind of upset or they're expecting a response, and we can't always guarantee that would happen. So the best way that we felt to be able to communicate with them is give them a direct call to action, which would lead them to the contact information on our website page specific. So we did add that in there.
Can I interrupt you for a second, Holly?
Sure.
I don't mean to interrupt your presentation, but could I comment on this section and just changing the wording in one sentence, or do you want me to wait?
I think that's fine. I can take notes of what needs to be changed.
So after the call to action sentence that ends in Norwalk's website, could we make that next sentence more proactive and say this enables staff to see the message and be able and respond directly to various questions and comments?
Yes. Yep, we could sure add that in there.
I think it says the same thing. It's just more
Positive.
Positive. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry. Thanks for indulging me.
No, absolutely. And we are very open to any of the language changes that might need to be made. The main point that we want to get across here is the content and the subjects that we want, your feedback on and possibly approval for later, but we are absolutely welcome, to any language changes. So, and then we also added into that section, the city would be giving authority to management the ability to determine if commenting should be on or off, if it should be an option on any of the social media posts that the city makes on the official city sites. So individually, each department can still determine if they have their own department page, they can still determine whether or not they want to have comments available. But on the main official city sites, we are suggesting that we do not have comments turned on unless there's a specific reason to, if we are looking for a just direct, interaction on that specific post. But generally speaking, what we are recommending is that the comments are turned off and it gives a direct link, a direct access for them to contact the person or the elected official related to that post. So if it's a press release, about a new business coming, we will have at the very beginning of that post, for more information about this business or this, development, please contact, and they would have, my contact information or Luke Paris's or the company's contact information. We give them a direct route. And then same thing with any other type of post. It would just be a very direct way for them to contact the city, whether it's questions, concerns, a complaint, either way, they can get a hold of us directly. So, and the point of this in terms of turning off the commenting, generally speaking, is we just feel like we're not having that direct communication with the public because this commenting is just kind of this Wild West open forum. And it's becoming really unrelated to the information that we're trying to get out to the public. So we're trying to give them information, updates, things that are important they may need or want to know about. And, our official platforms are really just kind of being hijacked with things that are very unrelated to the information that we're trying to get out. And, it's really breaching into those areas of slander and, position threats and just all sorts of really not good things that are happening out there. And it's not just the city of Norwalk, it's all over. I think things have changed a little bit over the last few years. So for us, we just feel like not only with staff time trying to monitor and manage that and make sure that things aren't being, our policy isn't being breached and there's not threats and there's not, the slanderous stuff happening. We just want to make sure that if people actually have a real question or comment or concern, that they are directly communicating with us so that we can provide the facts and the details and the information. So essentially what we're asking in this policy is that council gives management the discretion to determine, whether we want those comments on or off for various posts. And again, one might come out where a council member says, I want, comments open on this particular one for whatever reason. And then we'll have that selected on. Otherwise, we will just give them a direct route to communicate with us. So that's probably the biggest change in this policy. And, we know it can be a little bit contentious because people worry about, are they going to feel like they have a voice and an option to, spill their guts about whatever it is. But, we have looked into this really, really deeply and researched a lot and talked with legal and other cities. And what it boils down to is there's not a perfect way to handle this. There's lots of different hybrid options that we can do, but really we feel like the most positive and informative way to handle this is, again, just having that direct link for them to communicate with us versus just this kind of wild, open, negative way for people to just, bash things. So that's the biggest change in this policy. And then the last bit I think would be that we did add in under Roman numeral 8 as well. We have city posted content. And so what that is we're just kind of slimming things down and making things a little bit simpler in terms of what the city will post on our official pages. So we all know there's, you know, a holiday or special recognition day for everything under the sun anymore. And that's why we put those kind of silly examples of like Cat Awareness Day and things, which that's probably real, but you get the point. So there are just so many that you literally cannot keep up with them all. And if we try to, someone's going to get left out and then someone's going to be offended. So we just feel like the safest way and kind of lessening the liability a little bit on the city side is just sticking to what has been approved by council in our official handbook in terms of the holidays that the city is closed on. So the holidays that the buildings are closed on, we will post about those and really nothing else. But again, other departments, if they want to post something that's a special recognition day, like the police department wants to do Police Week, they can certainly post that. No problem whatsoever. But just on our main pages that are, you know, informational only, we are proposing that we just stick to those very basic council approved recognition days and holidays. So I think those are the main changes. And I guess with that, I would just open it up to your discussion or questions. And Ty is also on here. She can certainly answer any of our technical related stuff. I just wanted to go through the basics of the content.
I think it's great, well-written. I think it's, I like it. I think it's a fair way to deal with some of the issues that you all have been having to deal with and the staff time that it's been taking to resolve some of the issues.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with it. I like it as well. And I think it's a good, clean, simple way to handle it. And appreciate the work you guys have done on this.
Thank you.
I was just gonna say that my preference still would be is that you just shut the commenting off on that page, and then if you want to gather feedback using a Google form or some other option to receive the feedback rather than the following comments. That'd be my preference, just shutting it off and not allowing it whatsoever.
I guess my comments are kind of along the line with David. It should be very rarely that we allow comments on the page, because the whole goal is, if you picture it, whether it's a public forum or not, if you create a public forum for debate, I mean, it harkens back to when people put the soapbox in the middle of the park and wanted to give their speeches, whether they were popular or not popular. The government couldn't come and say, okay, you're off the soapbox because we don't agree with you. When we create a situation, a website, a Facebook, social media, where we invite or allow comments, we're installing that soapbox. And as a result, at that point in time, once we have a soapbox there, we can't pick comments or not comments, say, boy, this is a popular issue, so we're going to allow comments on this, but boy, this is going to cause some controversy, so we better not do it on this one.
But
I mean, either comments are on or they're off.
But if we turn them off, I hear what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing. If we turn them off, does that prevent us from being able to, for instance, do surveys through these formats? Because then we're inviting comments.
I think there are other ways to do surveys other than encouraging comments on the post. It could be a link to a survey.
Okay.
That
Something
was
like that.
my thought
Yeah.
process when you
Survey monkey.
Yeah, I'm
something
not
like that.
opposed to that.
Yeah, something like that. But as far as, once you open up that debate, we can't control the content of the debate.
Fair. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yep. And we agree. And that's our recommendation as well, is that they, you know, we don't allow them unless it's just a very, very super special situation. But even in that case, we would recommend directly linking it to a survey format or somebody's email. I know, you know, Luke Paris had mentioned wanting, you know, community feedback for, you know, different plans and things that are going out, amendments. And of course we want that. But again, we would recommend directly linking it to a survey. And of course, Ty can help put that stuff together or just sending it directly to their email.
So, go.
One thing that I've been thinking about on this, if we get to a point, or if the ultimate decision is not to allow comments, I would strongly encourage, because sometimes attention spans are very short. Anything more than about 2 or 3 lines of text sometimes don't get read. So I would encourage with any post that does go up, that it's that first line where it says, for more information about this post, or whatever contact information ends up within that first or second sentence.
Yep. And we did write that in there, Luke, that's at the very top of each post.
So then no comments, we would eliminate these 2 bullet points, the last 2 bullet points, right? Under whatever that section is.
it would just, yeah, I would think that instead of those two bullet points, it would say comments would be disabled for social media posts.
Right, which is what it says in the bullet point.
And I guess I'm getting, maybe those need to stay, because I think
In
that
case you do a
there's
survey
a
or
difference to me between the official city of Norwalk one and I don't know what the chief of police feels on, when they do that. I don't even know. I see yours. I don't know if I've ever read a comment on yours, but
Yeah, but that's a.
the
it's a department.
departments-
It's covered under.
I
this.
know,
It's a
that's what I'm
department.
asking. That I think the intent was still to allow the departments to open theirs up for decide comments if they chose to.
Okay, I'm not understanding the distinction that you're making. I thought you said you didn't think there should be any comments.
On the main city of Norwalk. Mine is solely on the one that we're using to share. This new business is coming to town.
Okay,
There's
so
no
that,
ordinance in effect. It's limited to information being given, not.
okay, so isn't that what this says? I'm just catching up, I think.
I just want to make sure, I've sat through a couple meetings on this, so I apologize. I've sat, but I want to make sure that part, because Robin, yours gets a lot of comments, correct?
It is now getting the comments they can't make on City Hall's page.
You're now getting, so maybe it is cut off on all of them, and, because at one point yours was, you'd have a program and then
Yeah.
somebody would tag so-and-so, hey, here's the sign up for your kid. I mean, to me, that was a good use of it versus you're now getting them, so maybe that's,
Yeah,
maybe it is shut them off on all of them, I don't know.
I just feel like if,
because we want them. We want community feedback, but
But there's ways of getting
So
that
we
without,
weigh it.
there's ways of getting that without Facebook comments.
right, and that's the whole point of this, right?
Yes. And that's maybe where, maybe I'm going that direction more and more.
And David, I know what you're saying because Luke Nelson pointed out the same thing where he just kind of wanted a all or nothing language in the policy. We left it a little bit flexible in here just in case there comes a time, I don't know what that situation would be, but if there comes a time where somebody says, we want to open this up for some sort of a public debate, then we don't have to go back and change our policy. Or if God forbid, a month down the road, we're like, oh, this just is not working. We don't have to change our policy. We still have that flex in there, but we're more than happy to just clean line this thing and remove any options. That's fine with us. We just wanted to leave some flex in there just in case anybody still wanted an option for it. So
I'd pull it out then, and I would tell you that if in a month it's not working and you realize that, I don't have a problem you coming back and asking to change it.
Yeah.
I'd rather do it that way than leaving wiggle room, because wiggle room is what leads us to potential problems.
are you guys still wanting us to leave in the language about the other departments having the option to leave them open and we just clean out the rest of the language concerning the official platforms for the city?
I think that every department is a city department, and if we say that no, I think it needs to come out altogether. If we're saying limited, I think it needs to be limited altogether. And I understand the unique things where we want some community feedback on certain items. I appreciate that, but Park and Rec is a division of the city, and I just don't see that the Economic Development Department, which seems to do the vast majority of the announcements for new projects. I don't see that we should eliminate comments on that, but allow comments on everything else. It seems to me what's good for the goose is good for the
Chief,
gander.
you got a comment or something?
I do. I believe Chief Cool, one time prior to my tenure here, you created a Facebook page to do a
Yes, I did.
poll.
Yes, I did.
So I can see there's a time where you want feedback because you're asking the question, what does the community think about this? That's one thing. The other thing is, I would request that the police department be allowed to have comments, because I enjoy the ability to communicate back and forth with people who comment on the post. I believe that when I put a post out and a community member says, the police department is great, or officer so-and-so is such a fine officer because he did this or that, because I'm featuring an officer of something they did. I want the officers to see that feedback, because I think it's important for them to remember that, to see in writing that people like us. Yes, there are some times where the comment might not be great. The homicide investigation with the baby is an example. There were a lot of comments there and very few of them though were inappropriate, and those we followed the policy and hid. So I want the ability for people to comment on a police department post, because I think it's better for my current situation.
Also, when it was always positive when you mentioned there's a picture of someone semi-shopping at Ace that's carrying something out. You know, there would be fantastic posts for that. And also, what if, as a department head, I want to put out a Survey Monkey, one of those things? Now I have to bring
You
it
have to
to
do it
council?
differently. No, you just have to do it differently.
No.
You just-
You post it
you
there.
Well, you
I-
can do surveys, you just can't have comments. You have to do a link to a Survey Monkey.
Is that, well, okay, now we have to go through a certain brand.
Yeah, I mean.
I'm
I don't
saying, doesn't it-
disagree, But
This says everything we want it to do right there, but it gives leeway if there is an exception, is my point.
I don't disagree, except that who is making that exception? And that's where it gets, for me, I think this is Jim's point, that's when it gets into a free speech issue is, you know, okay, you can speak freely with the police, but you can't speak freely to the mayor or to planning and zoning or to, I mean, right, I just think that I think we've got to make the decision kind of across the board. But
Well, the only distinction I would say between the city official, I shouldn't say official because all departments are official, but the main city informational platforms, I guess we'll say that. And the departments pages specifically, if a department puts out something like Greg said, you know, if they put out something, they do want that interaction. It's just, it's more specific to their department and a project or an initiative that they're doing. Maybe it's pancake breakfast, it's fire department, you know, something like that. Whereas the main city platforms for information are specifically to just put out information to the public. So it's a little bit different in that sense. And we're proposing that those main sites that are informational only, that aren't department specific, those are the ones that we don't have just that open commenting on. But if somebody chooses a different department because it makes sense for what they're posting, then they would have that ability. But in terms of the primary sites, the only person that would be able to make that decision if we did want to open up just free willy comments would be Luke Nelson or a council member. We're not going to do it because our suggestion is just not to have them. So
I just, right, and I understand and I appreciate that. I just think it's a very slippery slope because when Greg posts an award to a member of his force, that is for informational purposes. When we post the, new development of Fairway, that is for informational purposes. And somebody might have positive things to say about both, and somebody might have negative things to say about both. And I don't really have strong feelings about how this policy is written. I just think that that's a slippery slope and it puts us at a little bit of risk.
Hey, Chief, could you cover could you get to the same point? If when you posted something, if you put a prompt in there or go to, you know what I mean? They could click on to make comments and those comments might come directly to you. We could do that, couldn't we?
I believe so. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
And
But
I
then it
think-
defeats your point, right? You want other people to see it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think what my concern with, and I happen to agree with the comments from down there, is that we're putting a blank wall up there. Right? And anybody can write whatever they want to write. And some of those things pretty counterproductive, let alone, on the edge of being even legal, right? And I just think it's more hurtful than helpful to have a blank wall up there for graffiti. And I'd rather see comments made in a constructive way that's directed to somebody that can respond. And I understand what you're saying, having been in that spot too. But if we could put a prompt there that would take the message directly to you and not put it on the wall, good or bad, right? You could still gather the info and it would keep us a clean wall.
I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I think it's technologically possible. I'm sitting here talking about this from a position where people haven't regularly trashed the police department on social media. My point of views might be different than another director's.
Yeah,
But I also think it's important that when we put a social media post out and there's positive comments, and other community members see those positive comments, it raises the standing of the police department in the community's eyes, because people see somebody else saying how good this was, or how they appreciate this, or the officer did a good job. It just reinforces the positive image of the police department we try to project all the time.
yeah.
I think, and taking away the ability for the community to say that. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, if we take it away, we take it away. And if we don't take it away, there's likely a day where somebody comes in and trashes it off. And then it's stuck there.
Your point's well taken.
So
And we've thought about that too, Greg, and we feel like it's not taking away their ability, it's just changing their route. It's just giving them different methods of doing it, because we just don't feel, at least on the official, we are the main pages, we just don't feel like that's the right place for those things to be happening. I understand department by department that makes sense. But on the main informational pages, it's not the right forum for that. And we're giving them a different way to do that, whether it's good or bad.
Mayor, could I say something?
Sure.
I would just like to thank Ty and Holly for putting together a policy that I was really comfortable with, because I know it's been really difficult for everybody to manage what we've been seeing. And I thought that as the library director, I thought it was a really good option for me to be able to keep our Facebook open and all of our social media open for a dialogue and for the engagement. Granted, we generally don't get stomped and beaten around like some folks do, unfortunately, but my time is probably coming. But I don't want to shut that down. I feel like the positive that comes from it, as Greg was saying, is more important than what it would outweigh to take that away. I'd like to keep it the way the policy is. And I also felt like the appendix has some really good pieces that allow us to kind of help monitor what can and can't go up there. So I thought it was really very well put together.
Parks and Recreation would like the option for keeping comments on, and we are one that is.
Even getting hit.
Yeah. So, if we turn comments off, will the public be able to share the post?
I think you can leave sharing on, can't you?
Yes, they can still
Wait a
share.
minute, if they share it, then I could share it to my wall or whoever, and then I get massive comments again and every.
But those comments are on your wall, not on.
Yeah.
Not on the cities, and the city's not.
Okay.
Because right now, when these comments pop up, somebody from each department or I is having to deal with these comments, and so if it pops up at 2 a.m. and then something offensive is up from 2 to 6 a.m. we as a city I just think that shutting the comments off, I know you guys want them on, but I think shutting them off is a clean
So
cut.
on our page, if they comment, then we're the ones that monitor. City Hall is hard because Ty doesn't know the answers for all the other departments. It's difficult because on days where the comments are against you, you are struggling to corral staff and say, you're doing a good job. Look at all the other positive comments. But there are more positive than negative.
I guess I would reiterate, there's a 2-minute comment period 3-minute. period.
Oh, sorry.
These meetings, if they can come, if they really feel
Oh.
that strongly,
I know.
they will hide behind their keyboards.
Mhm.
Do it, and,
Yes.
but they won't come do it face to face, and I guess if they really truly believe it, they would be. Here, they would send you an email, and I'm sure you get emails anyway, but you would get more, I mean, you would get.
Not from the
But-
people that come.
But what I'm saying, and my concern still is that a lot of these keyboard warriors work 10 PM to 6 AM. Online, that's when they're doing these comments, and sometimes that's where the things go down the rabbit hole even farther, and
Mhm.
I guess I was, if you want to know the truth, when it was first told, I was first told about this a couple weeks ago. Before our admin meeting, I was in the world of leave the comments on, just let it go. And then after listening and thinking about it more, I'm in this world of just shut it off, and then if somebody wants to share it to a page and that page has the discussion. Great, let them have the discussion there. It's out of the city's hands at that point. We're not the ones needing to monitor. I just feel like we're spending a lot of staff time monitoring this.
Mhm.
That's the hard thing.
And then you talk about having to reassure your employees are doing a good job, and they are doing a great job. I hope they all know that, because I don't know why any of our employees that aren't working hard, I mean, you go across all the departments, they're all working hard right now, and it frustrates me when I see some of these comments. I get it. But at the same time, that's where I've come to the conclusion of shutting them off. I don't mind, I guess I don't mind keeping the option open, but at the same time, if they're starting to go down the rabbit hole on the departments, I'm in the world of be done with them.
Just as I kind of agree with you, but I don't want to have staff looking at other pages and trying to correct information on other pages. And I know you can't get away, I know you can't get too far away from that, but if somebody's posting incorrect information out there, at least we could post or a comment on what they've shared to correct that. I don't,
think that you
I-
can do that in a different way. I'm in the camp, and I told Holly, I wouldn't allow comments on anything. Because it does take a lot of time. And it does take staff time to look through it. It is a negative to morale. But if something is on another Facebook page and you see that there's incorrect information, if it is something that's like, wow, we really need to stop that, you could always put another post on the city page to say, you know, a little bit more detail on X, here are the facts. Instead of, nobody wants to engage in that other page. But I also don't think that staff time needs to be spent monitoring those other pages. I mean, if somebody wants to get information from the city, they need to call the city. We've had the number, the email, we've got information all over how they can do that. So I would like to make it clean and just not have comments.
I will say what we see at the fire department, though, is similar to Chief Staples. It's mostly questions, informational type stuff. But what they will also do is they will tag the fire department, or they'll tag employees that they know work for the fire department. So even if it is on the Norwalk page and not on the fire department page or city page, they start tagging people that they know. So there's still staff time, if you will, kind of monitoring that, because they'll tag you personally if they know you, to get an answer. And it's like, what time is pancake breakfast for us? You know, but I am sensitive to the negative comments that are going through the open forum. I'm just not sure that we'll curb all of it.
It won't curb it, but it will take it out of the city's. plate.
Yeah.
Yeah, get it off.
Yeah.
You know, today I got a haircut. I know it comes as a surprise to people, but the topic of conversation up there at that barber shop was city Facebook. Now, I didn't bring it up, they did. And they asked me, they said, why in the world? Right? Why in the world are these people able to post some of that stuff?
Mhm.
Well, Jim answered the question earlier, right? You can't block one and let another, and you know, I understand what the chief's saying, both of them, and I get what how the library's position is on it. But you know, I think the cleanest way to do it is just say no comment. but provide a vehicle for them to be able to direct. Because maybe they're actionable comments. I mean, maybe there's stuff that would really be helpful, right? But rather than letting somebody create their own hoorah section up there, right? Have them send it directly to whoever's managing each of these Facebook pages. And directly they get the message. They can respond to it.
So Holly, can you have the message feature on each page active? So it'll just be a direct message to that department?
We can have that turned on, but yes, they can do that. We turned it off on the main city page because people were sending out random questions and nobody could, answer fast enough or get to fast enough. But individually, yes, the departments can have that messaging feature turned on.
So that could be an option to get more information, like for pancake breakfast or something that you could say message.
Yep, as long as they have someone watching it, all the time to make sure they're responding.
So, I mean, could you leave that to each department? Each department has the option of having messaging, but then it's incumbent upon department to figure out who's monitoring that on a regular basis. And then they can see how much time they're spending on that, and you can revisit that.
Good idea.
Yes, they can do that.
We could always come back and look at it again. I mean,
I would like to just make it known that this is an experiment and none of us know the answer. So if anyone notices things are blowing up one way or the other, good or bad, get back to us and we can adjust it or look at it again.
And something I wanted to point out too, I know that it feels like, for the departments that just see a lot of positive interaction, like fire and police, they're always going to be the golden babies, right? People are going to love them. They might get a few that get crazy or whatever. So I understand not wanting to lose the ability to hear those positive. I understand that. I do. And I want everybody to know that this is not being proposed by us because the stuff that we put out gets bashed. I'm more concerned, I'm kind of used to that. Some of that goes along with the territory of my position. But is it fair to a department like everyone at Parks to be bashed? I mean, it doesn't go along with their position. And I would be more concerned with staff, in this having to work in a hostile environment because we're not allowed to defend ourselves on there. So they can get personal all day long. Our family reads this stuff, they're calling for people to lose their positions because you don't have a fancy enough pool or they don't want a Starbucks that they wanted 5 years ago. Now they don't want it. It's so random and it's so all over the place. But my main concern, not even with, myself or our department specifically, or who gets bashed, it's more about the business environment. So, we're tasked with and paid to go out there and create this healthy economic environment and bring in quality businesses that are going to be lasting and good for the tax base and jobs. And then the businesses that are taking this huge risk to spend all of this money and time to develop in an unknown quantity, then they read these comments on our official government page, bashing them. I mean, I'm more concerned with that than me personally. I'm used to that, but that's concerning to me because we're creating this horribly hostile, negative environment for something that is so positive. And so that's more, I just want the other departments to understand that it isn't so much a personal thing for me. Yes, it gets old, you want to cry, you want to run away, whatever, but I'm more concerned with our business environment. They're the ones, risking time and money and effort to come here, and for them to see that kind of stuff is just, we should have more control and the responsibility of our official platforms for information than that. So.
Just real quick, I guess every other department's given their perspective on it, so I'll throw mine out there before, just so I can say I did it. I ran our public participation program at the Des Moines MPO for 7 years before I came here, and getting the public to be involved in any process is one of the most difficult things I've ever done. And to lose a tool to engage the public is disappointing. That there's some bad apples that are probably 5% of everything. And so we lose that tool because of that. I don't have a strong opinion one way or another. We community development don't have our own Facebook's page. We toyed around with it. If we're not going to have comments on anything, then we probably won't bother. Ty helps us a lot on Facebook pages to post on the main page. So I don't have a huge stake in it. And we don't really use it that way anyway. I just know that it's difficult to engage with people. And a lot of what community development does is predicated on engaging with the community. I mean, we have to know what the community wants and what their viewpoints are on things to be effective in what we do. So that's my perspective. And there's negative folks out there. I've probably been called more negative things in person than I ever will on Facebook. Yeah, just come to a planning meeting and you'll hear all about how terrible we are at what we do. So anyway, that's just my thoughts. Appreciate all your guys' effort, and obviously Ty and Holly's effort to pull this together. I think it's good that we've got a policy that kind of formalizes what we're gonna do with stuff.
So what I'm hearing is turn off comments
For the city's page, for sure.
organization-wide. Organization-wide.
I'd still would like to see the individual departments be in charge of their own. They can decide to turn it off or to leave it on. But that's just fine.
I'm in that camp. You guys all want them off?
I think we should try turning them off and see how it works.
And again, if you're wanting it to get feedback, I think that Ty will help you with setting up a survey or Google, whatever. I think there's other means of getting the feedback. That's what you're going for. With your Facebook posts, and I know it's not gonna cut it all out, but it's gonna, I think, help.
Does it have to be all off all the time? Like, what if we had an event? Could we turn it on at you know what I mean? If there was a reason to turn it on, like our page is really busy during Santa Day, so everybody's following Santa, you know what I mean? So does it have to be all off all the time? I mean, I know it's silly.
Sure, you have to bring up Santa.
Well, we're talking about important things.
If someone
Yeah,
wants-
Jen,
if there's
the way that
something-
it's written, you would have that option.
Post that to that person. I mean, they can share it.
We have one person that literally volunteers to watch our Facebook page during Santa Day, you know, just.
My opinion is that either it's gonna be on or it's gonna be off.
Okay.
It's not a light switch. It's much more of a hard electrical connection. Either it's on or it's off. I can certainly make scenarios in my mind where maybe for emergency situations, you got a storm and the local phones are out. You can't make any communications, and maybe this is an alternative form of communication for that limited event, but I don't see it. Once again, once we start saying, okay, this is a good issue to have discussion on, and boy, we don't want it on this, that's when we start picking issues, and that's when we get in trouble.
And as far as like surveys go and everything, I know like people keep saying Survey Monkey, but there are a bunch of other platforms, and I'm happy to sit down with the departments and pick, the one that works best for them. It could be Google Forms, it could be Survey Monkey, it could be, going directly to a specific department email address. So that's easy enough for me to work with them on that, and help find the best fit.
Good, let's do that.
We also reached out to, Ty reached out to a bunch of other cities around the metro, and then I reached out to the cities here in Warren County just to kind of see what they're doing and how they're handling things. And I would say probably at least half of them have some form of a hybrid. So if they deem something considered public information or public service announcement, no comments. But then there are other posts that they might allow them on, like what Jen had mentioned. So some of them have kind of that hybrid, but I will tell you the ones that I talked to, they said, if we do this, they'll probably follow suit, because they're also at that point where they're just like, it's lost. We've lost all control over this. And it's not the purpose of our informational sites has been lost. And it was a really funny comment that came out of Carlisle actually about what's happening with their community page, but it was just very familiar. So I know we're not the only ones on this. We might just be the bravest ones to start this. And maybe it'll be disaster. I'll admit, who knows? I'll take the blame for it, but we've gone down every road and every path on how to handle this better. And this is the best route that we have found at this point.
And to piggyback off of that, Chris and I spent 2 days on an economic development training, and it was actually nationwide. And I did bring this up when we talked about social media, and they were talking about how to use social media and what platforms. And I did put it out to everyone and said, how many of you allow comments? What are some of the issues that you have? And per like what Holly said, you know, unfortunately, those that are allowing comments, you know, they are leaning towards turning them off, but you know, nobody wants to be the first one to do it. And so a lot of the feedback I got was, you know, if you try it, you know, you have our contact information, let us know how it's working because we will likely follow suit.
Right.
So it was very surprising to hear that nationwide instead of just leave it on and get beat up over it.
Sounds like we're gonna blaze that trail.
If we save any of our employees any time at all, it's a win.
Okay, so any other questions from you guys? Because we're gonna talk about this later. All right. Holly and Ty, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Ladies.
And department heads, thank you for your input as well. Okay, item number 5 is welcome guests and public comment. Welcome to our meeting. We appreciate you being here tonight. We'll go ahead and open up dais if you want to address council for non-agenda items. We'll give you a 3-minute time limit. That includes folks online. We can't take action on these tonight since they aren't on the agenda. Also, if you'd like to comment on any item in the consent agenda, now would be the time. Do we have any takers? Hearing none, we will move on. So item 6A, open meetings and rules. So Luke Nelson, Jim Doherty, and Lindsay Offenberger are here. Several months ago, City Council suggested that we take some time to do a refresher with our boards and commissions of the city. And I believe it was suggested after we appointed several new members to the various boards. Luke, Jim, and Lindsay have been very busy doing these presentations, and they're now ready to provide council with a little refresher. So Luke, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Mayor. Well, we'll go back and forth between Lindsay, Jim, and I, and we'll just jump right into it. So why are we doing the training? Well, just as the mayor mentioned, it was because you suggested it. Reinforcing the role of boards, commissions, and elected officials certainly helps us all be more efficient and more effective. There is enabling legislation, Iowa Code 364, which is the summary of home rule, which to some extent allows city government to operate as we see fit unless there is a specific statute within the state code that does not allow it. A good example to give you is the school district. School districts in Iowa are essentially just the opposite. Functionally, they can't do something unless the state specifically identifies, hey, here's how you can operate. Granted, each year we get a little bit concerned when we see that home rule being eroded at the state legislature, but we understand that what their role is and what they're trying to accomplish. We just don't have to always agree with it. Open meetings law. Lindsay, would you like to
Sure.
take this one?
Yep. As you are all aware, obviously our meetings must be open to the public. An agenda has to be posted 24 hours in advance, which we do. We post it outside on our bulletin board, and it's also posted to the website at least 24 hours in advance. And we do post the tentative agenda to our website as well, the Fridays prior to each council meeting. If I were to fail at that, you would not be able to have a meeting because it would be considered illegal. Do you want to go through the examples, Lou? You want me to do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
So 3 of you sat by each other at a soccer game. Is that illegal? Wasn't.
No, not once we talk about.
Depends on what we talk about.
Good answer.
Yes. 3 of you attended a chamber event. Was that illegal?
Same as soccer.
It's highly productive.
3 of you emailed each other in a group email about purchasing land for a new city hall. Was that illegal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Probably wouldn't be good.
And Luke called 3 of you separately to ask how you would vote on an issue. Surely that would be okay.
I think so.
How many times have you heard me say,
I'm not wanting to know how you're gonna vote on this issue.
thank you?
So that's usually how the
Informational
conversation
He says.
That's usually how the conversation starts. Yeah.
Well, you all passed with flying colors, so good job to you.
Wow. Best practices. Save discussion and opinion of any subject for open meetings. An electronic communication concerning public business is a public record. Yes, this includes social media. We've had some discussions in the past. I want to say this has been probably 3-4+ years ago since we've been talking about social media. I believe it was the community page where we were having some public officials engage, trying to answer questions, being productive. But what we found is ultimately there was concern that that then becomes subject to open records, and then we have to track that information. So if people on a community page, for example, get upset that somebody from the city is not participating, that is purposeful. Any other questions on that? Jim, jump in and add anything if
Okay.
we're saying something incorrect. Lindsay, you want to handle this one?
Sure, yeah, bare bones agenda information such as approval of old minutes or old and new business would not be sufficient. So I'm sure the mayor hates me most of the time when he has to read the consent agenda. But it's to allow the general public to make a decision as to whether or not they would be interested in attending a meeting based on what is on the agenda. So it has to be descriptive and not bare bones or vague. Also, the law gives the public the right to attend the meetings of our governmental bodies, but it doesn't require us to allow public input. However, it's highly encouraged that you do allow it.
Any questions on that? Minutes. It's probably yours too.
Minutes. So at a minimum, they have to show the date, the time, the place, who was present, and the action taken. Votes by each member must be noted individually, but a unanimous vote can be noted as such. So you'll notice a lot of time, well, most of the time when it's a unanimous vote, I state that in the minutes and just follow it with a roll call. RC on the minutes, but if it's not a unanimous vote, you would notice that you're all filled out separately on those who voted yes and no.
Jim, what about the question off to the side there?
You are legally, yes, you are considered present if you participate via Zoom. We do see that regularly. I think it's still kind of a gray area, and Iowa law is not really, I think, come up to speed with the electronic participation as much. So I mean, when you look at the law, so it talks about tape recordings and telephonic participation and everything. And it's become more acceptable as a result of COVID, because the law at that point in time encouraged it to be, or required it to be electronic, because we couldn't do it in the same room. But also there's kind of a wide range. There's a lot of cities that'll say, okay, we have to have in-person quorums. But if you're, so electronically, you can participate if you're not the board member that's creating the quorum. So if there's 3 here, there's 2 other electronic participation. You know, some cities, they have internal rules saying that that's how it has to be done. But right now, the Iowa Code rules aren't clear on that. Till now, we have, there's been some meetings where we've allowed a quorum to be established as a result of electronic participation. But certainly best practices to be present. Just because ideally the public's here, ideally the public should have a right to be able to see their elected officials, the board members working, and have a right to question those individuals if they want to. So right now, there isn't a hard, fast rule on how we do it. And because we, I don't feel like it's been abused. And so electronic communication participation has been allowed. When I say it's been allowed by the city council, because if I thought it got too prevalent or would you, I mean, if we spent all of our meetings with only one person present and the rest of them via electronic, I think we probably have city council having a discussion regarding that and maybe changing some rules on it. But by this point in time, yes, you can't participate by Zoom. That's the question.
Excellent.
One more touch on minutes, because I've heard Jim say it, but those are the legal notes of the meeting. So Jim, is it correct to say that if it is not in the minutes, it didn't happen?
Pretty much, yeah, because Because once you approve the minutes, that's what gets published, that's what is in the public record, and that's what happened at your meeting. So if someone looks at the minutes a year from now, that's what happened. And at that point in time, it's too late for a council member to say, wait a second, I didn't do that, or, you know, where's my opinion? I gave this opinion. So if there's something, let's say, that you're passionate about and you spoke about, and you want to make sure that's preserved, you want to make sure it got in the minutes. Is there some times when you make a point, it doesn't necessarily get into the minutes, and legally doesn't necessarily have to be in the minutes, but they're your minutes. And if there's the points you want to make sure are in the public record, like, okay, I didn't agree with that vote, I had a no vote, and this is the reason why. I mean, sometimes you might vote no and really only have a problem with one aspect, that would be, but it'd be okay with the other 90%. If you want to make that point, you want to make sure it's in the minutes.
Yeah,
Otherwise, it didn't happen.
Don't minutes also speak to legislative intent?
Sure.
Like when we passed ordinance or.
Yep.
Through the discussion.
Yep, minutes have legislative intent, resolutions, that's why you see some wording in the resolution, sometimes on important issues and stuff, you put in resolutions, that also shows legislative intent. So yeah, absolutely, minutes help you out too, but I guess the big thing is, it's important for you guys to read it, you vote on that it's accuracy when you approve the minutes, that's always on the agenda, and it is legally significant.
Open records, best practices. Jim, you want to take this one?
Yep, this is chapter 22. Basically, assume all records are public. There are exceptions to the rule, investigative items in police departments, documentation regarding employees. So there are certain exceptions, but all in all, government bodies are subject to examination of the public records. And that could not only mean documents, that means police department video, you know, if they were about body video, it could be reports, it could be internet communications, it could be email communications. So technically, if you're emailing Luke, and Luke emails you back, and that's a public record. So whenever you're communicating in your official capacity regarding city business, assume it's open and assume someone might read it someday. So you need to treat yourselves accordingly, and certainly we get requests quite often for records, and there are responsive requirements on statutes, the amount of time that we have, what we can charge, if we can charge on certain situations, but we take it seriously because it's regardless of whether we respect the person asking for the records, they're entitled to the records. So we always respond to those.
So the last slide that we have is just a suggestion for other Iowa resources. Iowa Public Information Board, Office of the Ombudsman's Office, Attorney General, Freedom of Information Council, and the League of Cities. And that last but not least, League of Cities, because that's where we go for an awful lot of resources. That organization really helps, gives us a lot of guidance. Lindsay, Jim, anything else we need to add?
Nope, but I think it was a good task force going around to the other boards, because city council, you meet every other week basically, and you live these rules and you understand the rules and you get a chance to talk to us all the time. The other boards, they don't. I feel real good about going and talking to them, because we also talked about their roles and went over their own enabling ordinances. So, you know, they better understand their jobs, and we use that opportunity to let them know that they're appreciated too, and that the council appreciates them. I thought they went really well. It was a good exercise that we should, you know, once every other cycle, we should regularly do that.
Appreciate you guys doing that. That's good. Thanks.
Mayor, that's all we have.
All right. The other thing that I heard once that I keep in my mind all the time is that this is not a public meeting. This is a meeting being held in public. And there is a big difference between the two. All right. Any questions from council? Hearing none, we'll move on. Item 7, proclamations. We have 2 proclamations this week. They are in your packet. EMS week is going to be May 21st to May 27th. And Public Works Week is also May 21st to May 27th. Those will be published social media with no comments on. And a note that says if they have any questions or comments, they can email me. So item 8 is our consent agenda. For that, we have tax expenditures, tax abatements. We have the April 20th, 2023 minutes of the regular city council meeting. A special event application for the Love of Norwalk 5K and Family Fun Fair on June 24th, 2023. We have a new Class C retail alcohol license for Gus and Lisa's Pub and Pizza at 1220 Sunset Drive. A resolution to approve pay estimate number 12 to Sternquist Construction for Sunset Drive, Iowa Highway 28 North Avenue Intersection Improvements Project. A resolution ordering construction of certain public improvements from Northeast Service Area Lift Station and Trunk Sewer Improvements, approving preliminary plans and fixing a date for hearing thereon and taking of bids therefore. We have a resolution approving the purchase of personal protective equipment for the fire department. We have a resolution approving acceptance of the Assistance to Firefighters grant and the purchase of SCBA fill station. We have a resolution approving amendments to the City of Norwalk Employee Handbook. Have a resolution to approve pay estimate number 2 to Elder Corporation for Sunset Drive, Iowa Highway 28 and Beardsley Street intersection project. Have an approval for a 2-year extension to the financial services contract with PFM. A resolution accepting the certificate of completion for 2022 PCC Street Rehabilitation Project with final pay estimate number 2 to I-80 Concrete. A resolution approving contract with Traffic Control Corporation as part of a Iowa 28 Traffic Signalization Improvement Project. We have a resolution approving the Information Technology Manager job description and monthly reports and correspondence. Can I get a motion?
Motion second.
Motion by Rita, seconded by Livingston. Lindsay, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 9, we have old and new business for consideration, discussion, and possible action. Item A is continuation of the public hearing regarding the zoning amendment to chapter 175C.04 Airport Hazard Height and Noise Mitigation Overlay Zoning Regulations to update requirements for aviation easements. So we'll continue this hearing at 7:02 p.m. We've had the airport here to discuss, well, Kevin has been here to discuss this zoning amendment for noise mitigation overlay. And this has gone through planning and zoning now. Luke Paris, so I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So this is an amendment to our overlay district for the approach zone. And it's focused on something called an navigation easement, which essentially is a document that would be required at the time of final plating. So it's not establishing easements right now. It's something that would happen with development, similar to a drainage easement or an easement for sanitary sewer or something else that acknowledges the airport's flight patterns and the noise that it produces over top of the property. The area, if you can scroll down on to page 4 of the PDF. Forget 4 you said. Yeah. There we go. So we currently require a navigation easement as part of the overlay district. It's restricted to an area the code refers to as the 65 decibel area. I think the airport more formally calls that a 65 DNL area now. You can see that on the map. It's the yellow area. So really not going to cover much of the community. So the airport approached us earlier this year to explore expanding that out. And so this ordinance would contemplate expanding that navigation easement requirement to 10,000 feet from the end of the runway. So if you go to page 5, that will show that location. It essentially goes from the end of the runway. There's a dashed line that you can kind of see out there over 50th. Maybe you can highlight that better, Luke. It's kind of where his cursor's at. So it would cover a decent part of the area at County Line and 50th corridor that's undeveloped right now. So any development in there would have that new requirement added to it.
This is 50th here.
Yep. County Line Road at the top.
So the existing, there's one or two existing homes in that area.
Existing home, there's a couple.
Covered by this at all. correct?
Yeah, it would not change. Again, this is an establishing easement.
If they sold it, then the easement would have to go into place.
Even if they sold it and want to go into place, it would only go into place if they subdivided their property.
So this basically would be for all new construction.
Correct. Any new development.
What are the limits on the new development? Like if, in other words, what would go up on the corner? It limits size buildings, for example?
Navigation easement purely is just a document that's identifying the airport's operation. That they produce noise and that things. It doesn't restrict.
Is there any way to actually enforce Southwest Airlines to actually follow this out instead of the minute they get off the ground, loop around over my house over and over and over again? I mean, what good is this? Seriously, if they don't follow it out, is there any kind of reward or punishment for it? Sorry, it's kind of like, not just a public hearing, but me debriefing.
What about all my flight changes too?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor and Council,
Yeah.
Kevin Foley, Executive Director, Des Moines International Airport. So what we have is an agreement that restricts the when the aircraft can turn, and it's a certain radial off the VOR, and so they have to be at a certain altitude, and so if they're turning before that, yes, there is things that we can do. We can talk to tower, the air traffic control tower, and say, hey, you're allowing aircraft to turn prior to that.
7:05 a.m. You can try.
I'm pretty sure that they're complying with that agreement that is in place and not allowing those turns. So I guess maybe the short answer might be probably not much we can do if they're in compliance.
Kevin, that those rules only apply to coming off the runway towards Norwalk, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So Brian's getting it off the other runway.
This runway and this runway. They turn both ways. Depends on where they're going.
I'm trying to help you out, but
Yeah, okay.
Brian's not letting me.
Hey, you knew the airport was there when you moved there.
I know that, but they usually follow the rules. They continue straight.
All right, getting back to the topic.
Getting
again.
back, right.
So what we're discussing, right, is predominantly related to sound, right? The sound situation. And there's no new particular governance as far as heights beyond what exists now.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So this wouldn't necessarily carry with it a physical change on heights and that sort of requirements. But it would require certain soundproofing.
So it wouldn't require soundproofing. The ordinance as it's written, if you go back up to that map, I jumped the wrong thing on my screen. If you go back to the 65 DNL map, so the ordinance that currently is written identifies that as an area of 65 decibels where things are the loudest. And it does require an area of 65 decibels or more there to be soundproofing. And then it also requires navigation easement. When we brought this all to council and we're talking about what should or shouldn't go forward, my general direction from that, what I recalled it to be, was to only proceed with the navigation easement requirement expanded, not having soundproofing requirement expanded, because it's not expected for there to be. There will be noise above that area, but it's not of the 65 decibel or higher.
It'll be higher.
So we wouldn't have additional building requirements outside the yellow area. We would, and the way I've written this is it retains it for the yellow area. So if something did happen in there, we would still require noise on structure in the yellow area, but on the bigger red area on the other map, we would not.
Thank you.
Yep. Lindsay, have we received any written or oral comments on this?
We have not.
Any other public comments? Hearing none, we're going to finally close this public hearing at 7:09 PM. Item 9B is first reading of an ordinance regarding a zoning amendment to chapter 175C.04. Airport hazard height and noise mitigation overlay zoning regulations to update requirements for navigation easements. So we just had a public hearing for this zoning amendment. Luke, what was the P and Z recommendation?
The recommendation was for approval, with no change.
Anything to add?
No.
All right. Any questions, comments from council?
Motion. Second.
All right, any public comment? Okay, I got a motion from Livingston, a second from Reva. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 9C is a public hearing regarding a zoning amendment to establish the Dunn Property Plan Unit Development at 11.22 acres south of Delaware Street and west of Highway 28. So we'll open up the public hearing at 7:10 PM. The Dunn property is to the south of Windsor Windows and Michael Foods, and this project is actually a part of the property we're pursuing for the state certified site. Benefit is that these developers have moved swiftly and they are ready to start development. The request is to rezone lot 3 outlot Y from M1 industrial to a plan unit development or PUD. The PUD is going to retain the M1 uses, but modifies bulk regulations. So Luke, I'll let you take it over.
Sure. So I think it's easiest to describe with the screen, the image on the screen. Lot 3 was the area, was created in a previous plat, and it was one large lot that encompassed parcel A and B shown on the screen. And looking at potential developments in there, they came up with the concept of a self-storage on parcel A there, and then a multi-tenant kind of warehouse office type use on parcel B, where that center drive would kind of be overhead door access. And then there may be some small office space for businesses in there outside of the storage area. And so trying to get those two uses to work together internal to each other created some setback challenges. So we worked with them to create this PUD, which contemplates that the external setbacks on Madison Street, which is street lot A, and then to the east, which would be up against future industrial, but is currently not in the city, would be our normal setbacks. But then we lessen those setbacks internal to the site, so that storage unit can get, within 5 feet of that lot line. That's would divide those two. Also lets it get a little bit closer to the north lot line and the south lot line. Parcel C in there is identified just as an M1 parcel. The only reason that's included is because our code requires a minimum acreage for a PUD. And they wanted to do something unique here and thought about, what can we do your infill PUD process, which is for smaller acres, but it's not an infill project. There's nothing currently there. So we didn't feel that was the right way to go. So we asked them to just go ahead and throw parcel C into the PUD. We'll still call it M1. It's going to have all the normal setbacks as M1. Really, all this is doing is setting some unique setbacks for parcel A and B.
All right. Lindsay, have we received any oral or written comments on it?
We have not.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll close public hearing at 7:13 PM. Item 9D is first reading of an ordinance regarding a zoning amendment to establish the Dunn Property Plan Unit Development at 11.22 acres south of Delaware Street and west of Highway 28. So we just had the public hearing up for this zoning amendment. Luke, you got anything to add?
No, sir.
Any discussion, questions, comments from council?
You said Madison Street, right?
Mhm.
Can I get a motion to approve first reading?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Cool, seconded by Reva. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call the roll?
Councilmember Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 9E is public hearing regarding the fiscal year 23 budget amendment. So we'll open up public hearing at 7:14 PM. So every May, we conduct this type of hearing to amend our budget for the year. I believe Gene's going to explain that every item within the budget amendment has already been reviewed and approved by city council. This public hearing is to give an added level of transparency and review to see the comprehensive impacts of budget amendments. So Gene, I'll let you take from here.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, as you mentioned, none of these things should be a surprise or new. We have throughout the year approved these. And I also should mention that the tax rate does not change. You know, we're using either reserves or non-property tax revenues such as grants. So we receive grants throughout the year. We still need to amend that expenditure line so that we don't go over budget and then have one of our funds negative at the end of the fiscal year when we get audited. So just to kind of go through a few of these, I won't go line by line. You can, I've stated those in my agenda statement. The revenues are up about 9.3 million. A lot of the use of money and property is due to interest from the bonds that we borrowed in August. And that's kind of the main reason for that one. They kind of categorize these in different, probably differently than if you would look at our budget online and look at these, you're going to see us separate them by department. The state of Iowa has us combine certain departments. So for instance, public safety is police, fire, EMS, and building and zoning. Even though building and zoning falls under community development, for us, as far as the state is concerned, it's classified as public safety. Culture and recreation is park and recs and library. So anyway, just to kind of give you a little bit of, it's a little bit different than the way we do it. We have a little bit more money for water and sewer. Summer 22 was a dry year. Usage was up, so our water and sewer fees were up. We also had some development capital charges and connections where we increased revenues in those areas. The miscellaneous revenues, that is up 396,000, and 300,000 of that is due to the tornado. We received insurance reimbursement for that. Overhead doors at the Public Works. I think I just got that invoice. That was over 100,000 to replace seven doors out there. So that's why that's up. And then 7 million was from the bonds that we issued in August of 22. We had planned on borrowing $12 million. Norwalk Central kind of being the main project. But we decided, due to the changing environment, the interest rates were going up, to borrow more money for projects that we knew we were going to approve or have coming down the pike. Certified site, one of those. So we ended up borrowing 19 million. It was a good choice. I think we borrowed at 3.44%. Rates are well over 4% right now. So it was a good decision made by the council. Expenses are up 9.5 million. The main reason for that is wages. We did a wage study in 22, but we approved this budget in March of 22. We did the wage study after the budget was approved. I can't tell you exact date, but it was after our budget was approved. And we made some wage adjustments for staff. And we did those over 2 years. I think we did July 1 and January 1, and then we'll do our final one July 1 of this year. So that's the main reason. The police union negotiated 8%, fire received 15%, and public works 8%. So wages are the main reason for a lot of these expenses increasing. And I would say the other big item is capital projects. Certified site, I already mentioned. We borrowed 4.4 million for that. Golden Valley, we're going to replace Golden Valley Drive, and then Highway 28 North Avenue, which is coming to a close as far as that project is one of those that's included in here as well. We also hired a police officer, someone in community development, and then someone in the library. And so we had to adjust the budget for that as well. I think those are kind of the highlights of the changes. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
All right, thanks, Gene. Lindsay, have we received any written or oral comments on this item?
We have not.
Any public comment? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and close public hearing at 7:19 PM. So item 9F is a resolution approving the fiscal year 23 budget amendment. So Gene just went over the budget amendment. And these are adjustments for our revenues and expenses, and in the packet, there are explanations for each of those items. Gene, you got anything to add?
I do not.
All right, any questions, comments from council?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. Any public comment? Hearing none. Got a motion by Baker. No, got a motion by Livingston, second by Baker. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 9G is a resolution approving the city of Norwalk amended budget transfers for fiscal year 2023. So Gene also went over the budget transfers for the fiscal year. Those are in your packet. Gene, anything else to add?
Just to let you know that this is something that's required by the state, that we approve a separate resolution. The main, these transfers are about $6 million. The main one being TIF that funds a lot of our debt service payments. And then lost would be the second one, and then water debt. So those are the main three transfers made into other funds.
Great. Any questions from council? Public comment? Motion.
Second.
Motion by Lester, second by Reba. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call a roll?
Councilmember Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Motion carries. Item 9H is a resolution approving the updated social media policy for official city sites. Earlier this evening in our work session, we went over the updates to social media policy. Did we have enough? Do you think we had enough changes that you want to wait and see any updates to it? Okay, so we're changing the language in 6, and we are also changing so that we don't allow any comments on any organizational Facebook page, social media.
Also allowing departments to have messaging for them if they wanted that.
Yeah,
Messaging direct, yes. yeah.
direct messaging is okay.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'll make that motion.
All right. Okay, I got a motion by Livingston, is seconded by Reba. Any further discussion or public comment? Hearing none. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Reba,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. I was gonna turn it over to Ty and Luke, but boy, we went right through that.
We beat it to death earlier.
Okay, that's good.
Present here discussions.
Awesome. Item 9I is a resolution approving fire and emergency medical services contract agreement pursuant to Iowa Code Section 28E between the city of Norwalk and the city of Cumming, Iowa. So this change to our agreement with Cumming has been in the works for quite a while, and Chief Porter's done a great job of equalizing what Cumming is paying for fire and EMS. They've been getting a pretty good deal in the past. These changes will bring what Cumming is paying for those services up to the same thing that the citizens of Norwalk are paying for those services. The increase for Cumming's budget was pretty large. So we're proposing a 2-step increase. Fiscal year 24, we'll see a partial implementation with the full amount being implemented in fiscal year 25. So Chief and Luke, I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. Can I come up front, actually?
You bet.
Thank you. I thought it would be just to kind of share the history of this agreement. The agreement with Cumming has been longstanding. This agreement was the previous agreement, I apologize, started in October of 2020. Prior to that, they were paying the township levy rates of the 60 3/4 cents.
In this most recent agreement prior to this one, we did start taking a closer look at the rates that Cumming was paying. And they were on a 3-step increase at that time. So they went from the 60 cents to 89 to $1.08 to $1.32. So they have been slowly increasing the rates that they've been paying us. There was a lot of work that we put into coming up with what was the equitable rate, because we were looking at our tire budgets, the fire budget, the EMS budget, and that sort of thing. There's a lot of work between myself, Luke, Jean, and the formula that we essentially came up with was we looked at the total fire and EMS operating budget. We included the capital or the equipment depreciation. So we did an evaluation of all of our equipment, building included. So we looked at depreciation to add that. Then we took out our revenues. They gave us our total operating cost. That was then divided, or the total budget was then divided by the total taxable valuations divided by 1,000 of the two cities combined. But that's how we came up with the 272. As far as the 2-year increase, again, that was just kind of following suit with what we had done with the previous agreement. We had been having some difficult conversations getting to the final numbers here. So I think when we had our final meeting, it was city managers from both cities, managers of both cities, mayors of both cities, our finance director, myself, and we had finally come to agreement that yes, we agree that this is how we are going to come to this rate, and they did ask for the 2-year increase. Again, we did a lot of calculations to decide how to become that rate. We looked at everything from valuations to the operating budget to call volume for utilization, and this is what we found to be equitable with the citizens here in Norwalk.
So you guys agreed to everyone agreed 2.72 is the right number.
For these numbers, but they also know that as our operating budget grows, as their valuations grow, then that number is going to change as well. So they understand. I was at their city council meeting a couple of weeks ago. They understand that if we continue to have these agreements, that number will be moving every time to match those numbers.
So why did we arbitrarily give them 2.02 when everyone knows the real number is 2.72 for that first year? That's not even due until June of 24, 2 years away.
The 272 is due, yeah.
Next year, at the end of the year.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that was because we had been having some challenging conversations coming to this point. It was in line with what we had done in the previous agreement, and we were all at the table and agreed to give it the 2-year look. So,
But an even more challenging discussion is when you have to talk to a Norwalk taxpayer and you explain to them that they're subsidizing the Cumming taxpayers.
Yeah.
How on earth can we it's roughly $24,000 short. Now if they want to do a step-up program, it'd be fine to do the 2.02 and then have that at 322. Would that make up the 70 cents?
oh, you mean that?
So actuarially,
Yeah.
you're at the same 272 for 2 years.
I'm happy to renegotiate the terms of the contract. Again, this was a lot of work in the making to get to where we are at. If council would like to see a different direction, I'm happy to do that. They want to continue services with the city of Norwalk. Where they're
I
at.
bet they do.
Sure, and I understand that financially, but I also see it from the response side, that they don't have a fire department. They don't plan to stand one up with their comprehensive plan. And so what happens in those situations is if we don't take the agreement, if we don't take the contract, and under whatever terms we decide, the likelihood of us still responding in the event of emergency is still there. It's still likely. Even West Des Moines, though they don't take contracts like this, they still come into neighboring communities to help when there's an emergency.
It's like our community when we're busy and coming.
Yeah, well, yes, or just busy in general. When we have West Des Moines coming down to assist us, if we had a structure fire right now today, we couldn't handle that incident alone. Just for reference, and I know that this is a point that really matters when it comes to the dollars and cents of it. But the utilization that the city of Cumming currently has on us is about 1% of our total call volume.
It's just, I find it frustrating when I hear from Cumming people bragging that their tax rates are lower than ours, but yet we're subsidizing the heck out of it.
I think
That's
this
a
is a step
frustration.
in the direction. When we've been moving, it was what, 60 cents?
When
Oh,
we started this
So
in
we're going
2020.
from 60 cents to 272 over
We've
5
been
years.
screaming about this for a long
I
time.
know, I was tell you, I'm fine with this step because I think it's reasonable and.
And it's
Yeah,
worth
it's
30,000.
It's not right, but it's reasonable. If that makes sense. I'm not, I'd rather see 272, but I don't think that.
I think, again, that's why I wanted to be here to have the discussion. I'm happy to go to come in and renegotiate if that's what the wishes of council. I think there is a separate piece of this that I wanted to take the opportunity to discuss as well. Because this contract specifically does not allow for fire marshal services. So what we have right now is we have a fire inspector that's doing our fire marshal services, which means they're doing all of our plan review, our life and safety inspections in the community and that sort of thing. We have been very clear that this number does not include those services. We just didn't feel like that was included. When I presented to them, they have asked if we would consider fire marshal services. Because even if it was at a per cost basis, if they said, charge us whatever you want to do this plan review, because there is at this point no other avenue for them. And how that affects us is we're still the responders in that territory. They originally thought that they could reach out to the state fire marshal's office to do the plan review. They will not. First of all, the state fire marshal's office is going away. It's going to Department of Inspection of Appeals. And they will only do the plan reviews of nursing facilities and schools. So everything would be excluded that's out there at this time. And again, they're willing to pay for it. And I'm looking for direction here as well. But how it affects us again, is it currently under this contract, we are the responders there. So I think we do have a vested interest in ensuring life and safety and new construction that's currently happening.
I think that we generally don't have a problem with that. We have a problem doing it at a rate that is significantly less than what our citizens pay. So I'm all for doing whatever service we need to do for them if they pay the right amount. And the right amount is at least what our citizens pay.
Agreed. And that's why I wanted to bring this to you, because we hadn't looked at a fee structure or anything yet, because I wanted to see again the wishes of the council if you wanted us to look at that avenue. There are other cities that have a pretty hefty fee schedule when it comes to those fire marshal services. I'm happy to look at that, and I agree that it needs to be equitable with the citizens here in Norwalk. But I wanted to see which direction you wanted me to head with that.
Maybe include that if we could get it 272, 2 years. I mean, that's the bare minimum.
Chief, I appreciate what you gotten done.
Yes,
I
thank you.
really do, because it's an uphill battle, right? And I know this started years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with what you got accomplished. We'd like to have a perfect world, we'd like to have an even match from the get-go. But you know what? It takes time to get there, and you got them there eventually, right? So I think we should declare victory. The other thing, doing inspections is actually in our interest,
Right.
because we're the responder for that area, right? So while they should pay the cost, that's right and proper, okay? It's good for us to be involved in that, since we're providing the coverage to that area. So I'd encourage that we find a way to do that where they cover the actual cost, right? And, you know, like I said, I'm happy with where you got us. I appreciate the continued effort, you know, and I know there's a lot of diplomacy involved in that.
Well, you know, this is the first conversation I had with the previous fire chief when I was elected to council.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
8 years coming, yeah.
Yes.
And then but you're appointed as fire chief, it was the first conversation I had with you. So where I stood on it previously was coming, asked, 7 years ago, oh, give us, a little bit of time to prepare for it. And I think, okay, they've had 7 years to prepare for it. They should know what's coming and they should have budgeted for it. And they're getting a lot of development, a lot of more residences, commercial now, the Hy-Vee building. I think that they can afford it and it's time for them to step up. So I really appreciate, I know it was probably miserable getting to this point, but I would like to see them go to 272 now. I mean, they have had years to figure out this is coming. Unintended. So I would like to be 272. I would like you to go back and just say, okay, it's done. Like, this is it. And I agree with the inspection, the fire marshal part of it, if they're willing to pay for the cost of it.
Okay. So we have a resolution before us.
I move to table it
For what purpose?
for renegotiation. Or is that just a no vote?
I would think that would just,
Or could we amend the amount?
I
Oh,
think
I
you
would-
could, I would entertain a motion to amend the amount.
So here's what I'm trying to understand. I'm all for that, but I'm struggling to understand this whole, I have to go back and renegotiate the contract. So
Well-
then is she gonna, they're gonna say, right, they come back and say, okay, well, all we can do is 250, so we've adopted this, and then she comes back and says, okay, all they can do is 250, will you consider that? And then we go, that's what I'm just trying to understand the logistics of it.
I think if you say, change the amount to 272. That is the bottom and that's what she's gonna take back and she's not gonna, she doesn't take anything less than that.
I understand, but if they don't agree, we don't have a 28E agreement, which we've just
Yep.
resolved to have. So it doesn't,
Well,
So-
the 28E agreement that we're resolving to have is for a specific amount. And if Cumming doesn't agree to that amount, then we don't have a 28E agreement with them.
And so then what happens? Let's start then that for that. So
I
then
think-
what happens? We still, we are
They go-
the
go for-
responders in
So,
that
I'm
district.
sorry, Mayor.
They go under North Warren at that point in time.
So they have to have, so cities and townships, like we discussed before, have to have fire protection by state code. So they would have to secure another fire department for fire response, not for EMS response. However, geographically where they sit, if they secured another agency, Northern Warren or Winterset, any of those agencies that may come into play and say, we'll take your contract. If they have an incident in the city, the likelihood of them managing that incident on their own is slim. So then we'll still be responding as a mutual aided company without the 28E agreement with the city of Cumming, because we have mutual aid agencies with the other fire departments.
But in mutual aid, do you settle up after that?
No. So that's why I don't want to approve this, because I want to continue the negotiation, so we actually have a 28E that gives us something. That's why I'm moving to, I don't know, say no to this or table it until we have that further negotiation. She goes back and says, city council is not satisfied with this, they'll only do 272. And then come back and say whatever they say, and then this come back to us with, this is what Cumming is willing to do, and then we can make a more informed decision. We take nothing or we take what they're willing to do.
If it's less than 272, it's a no anyway.
Well, it's not necessarily
I mean,
no
for
for
me.
me,
I know
right?
that.
So
I
that's
know.
why I'm asking to table. Because if we're still responding because of the mutual aid and then we get nothing, that makes zero sense to me. So I would
We're
rather.
not responding
renegotiate.
at the full level as if we had 2080, the ambulance
be.
and all
Well,
that stuff.
they are.
Yeah.
Virtually everything, this seems odd.
It's just, again, it's just geographically, we're the closest department. And it rolls from one department to the next. So even as Councilmember Riva has spoken about cutting down our mutual aid, that has taken conversations with Northern Warren and Martinsdale that are not staffing at the appropriate level to manage their own incidents, where we are being overutilized and at a no cost or a fraction of the cost. So through relationships with those departments, we've cut our mutual aid with those two agencies down 40%. We've reduced our territory size, but where Cumming sits, they're going to be West Des Moines will not entertain a 20 acre with them because they have no other contracts outside of the city of West Des Moines. So the city of Cumming would then have to rely on, again, Winterset, Van Meter, Martinsdale, all the agencies that would rely on us to.
How
provide
is
them with
hygiene gonna react when they find out they do not have a 28?
Yeah, that's a great question.
That,
And
I
that
think,
was-
is a golden question.
And that was, Hy-Vee was pretty much an order of contention for me when we began contract negotiations. And I reminded the city manager at that time that they didn't even bring the fire department to the table to discuss that large facility that was going on.
Massive.
Right, and so, but that was previous, city administration there. They are aware now, they have a new city manager, they have a relatively new mayor. And they are aware of the services that we are providing to them now. When we started this negotiation, it was a little bit different.
I would like to amend it to the 272 if anyone else is interested. Right now, I mean, you're right, we might as well ask for 350. They can say no and we keep doing it or whatever, but there will be a point of contention eventually. I think the 272 is fair. They've admitted it's fair. They just have to find a way to pay for it.
One question you brought up before, a crew up at the end of that second year. Where I find compassion is the fact that they've been in transition, and I believe they budgeted for an amount similar to that first year. I know that's not our issue, that's part of their budgeting. But I just throw out the option of maybe you just allow the shore up to happen in that second year. As you mentioned, I forget the number.
Whatever that is,
350
342 or whatever it is.
I would throw that out as another option. That might be more palatable because then they can at least budget and plan for it.
Good with that.
And I would agree with that, Luke, is that because when they presented this to their council a couple weeks ago when I were there, they were looking at that large increase and they made sure to let their council members know we had already budgeted for this going into this season. And so, yes, they had budgeted for that 202 or whatever that first year was.
But I can
and
already
I
hear
agree.
them next year. Well, I thought you said 272 is the equitable number. Now you're at 342.
So can't we amend
Right.
that part of it, right? Amend the second amount to 3, whatever the right number
Yes,
is?
whatever that is, the
What is
full. I don't
What is
know.
it, Matt? 70 cents, 42.
70 cents, yeah, 342.
342.
So if
And
we
then
want,
add a
if we
third
want-
year that says 272.
Well, we kept away from the third year just because we really wanted to reevaluate taxable valuations
agree with
between
that.
both cities, and exactly, our depreciation plan, our overall general fund.
This
budget.
ambulance
So
is at 350,000. It's kind of taking the fun out of all this.
so if we want to
Engines at
take
a
another
million.
run at it. Would it be procedurally best to table it or procedurally best for us to take no action? Or,
Well, I would think an offer on the table would make it. They know that if they just accept it, it's done. If we table it, then they don't know what we're gonna ask.
If they do, because we've been very clear and Chief Porter can go back and say, this is where they're at and this is what they're gonna do.
You're way nicer.
Well, I just have a different plan of attack. I don't think
I
it's
understand.
nicer. I think it's just a different plan. Not sure one's better than the other or worse.
So what I'm hearing is they could agree to a 272, 272. Or they could agree to a 202, 342.
Perfect. I like them both.
Yes.
And we're willing to entertain fire marshal services on a per cost basis.
Yes.
Once I
Yeah.
figure those numbers out.
So is that a table then?
Yeah, that
Is that a
second,
Table, or is that with that as marching orders or?
I would like to table it with those marching orders and revisit this next meeting if we can. I would like to know what we're passing. I would like to know the numbers that we're passing when we pass it. That's
So-
my.
So I'll run a scenario by you. So they agree to the 202, 342. And then they implement the 90-day termination piece. Terminated in the middle of the contract.
That's
So they-
okay with me.
Exactly.
They just give us the 202 for year one and move on. And we get 0 and do mutual aid then after that.
They have to
Just
have a
throwing that
contract.
out there
you
as
said.
I don't like that either.
No, because the mutual aid that this is just, it's just throwing out there. I know how business works and I know what we're providing to the mutual aided agencies right now. And so the contract for mutual aid is with the fire department that would be providing the service, not with the city of Coving. So then there would be no cost associated with that because we would likely be mutual aided in with Northern Warren or Winterset or Martinsdale. And there was no cost associated with that. That would be general mutual aid.
all they gotta do is have one set of boots on the ground and
Yeah.
call for help. Legally.
We
that's
have
it.
some territory that kind of borders there on the west side.
that's for mutual aid.
Yeah.
Which means reciprocal.
Which is not.
And if it's
which
not,
is a
which we're not gonna have.
misnomer.
Yeah, and that's a whole point of contention that,
Sure.
again, Chief and I are spending a lot of time talking through that, what those agreements look like.
And again, we have made a lot of progress. Like I said, we're down 40% on the mutual aid between the two agencies. I do have a new 20E agreement with Northern Warren coming to you in the next couple of weeks to increase the fees that we're charging them to be the same rates that we're charging Martinsdale. So we're currently not charging them. So we're continuing to step in the right direction. It's just as the agreements kind of come available
That's,
or come due.
that's for EMS.
Yes, yeah.
What can we do with fire?
I mean, we can. In the industry, like, nobody's charging for fire because we can't do it alone ourselves. Right? And so there is getting to be more of the conversation of charging each other for EMS as you're coming, EMS is 80% of our workload. And so that is the greatest draw on our system. And so there are other cities that are also looking at charging at a per call cost. Mutual aid for fire, I think, is truly mutual aid. Again, if we have a structure fire today in the city of Norwalk, we would be calling in other agencies to help us. So that's where that reciprocal piece comes in.
But we would be first on call and running a call then, right?
Or if we had a structure fire here today,
Yeah.
if we had an available apparatus, yes.
Okay.
So we would be first due on that, and then our mutual aid 8 companies would come in depending on where we're at in the city. Anywhere from West Des Moines to Northern Warren to Indianola, it just depends where we're at in the city. Unless all of our personnel are out on EMS calls, and they could be our own, both out of the city, then your first due engine may come from West Des Moines. So it's just kind of and that's all, the whole metro kind of works that way, aside from the city of Des Moines, because they can backfill each other. And West Des Moines can mostly manage all of their stuff too, but the other agencies utilize mutual aid.
I just keep coming back. We're asking our residents to pay $272 regardless. I think I would love just to amend what they want to do to the $272 instead of the $202 and vote on that.
My concern is the bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, and I think we have this in our hands, and I'm wondering if.
You think they don't have the extra money? I mean, they've got a massive commercial coming in here. They're developing, they're growing.
Right.
They're paying their bills. This is their bill.
I understand.
I
My concern goes back to, okay, if they say no, we'll just sign with North Warren, then we're providing their fire service for zero.
How about their ambulance? All of that.
If he's zero. Well,
We would charge Northern Warren at $250 a call, which again, so I think the rough numbers of that 202, we were looking at what looked like $100,000 a year, somewhere around that number. And at $250 a call for 10 EMS calls. Again, our call volume coming last year was 19 calls, 11 the year before.
So you're saying this is just your poop sandwich, enjoy it.
Well, I think things have been moving in a positive direction. I'd like to see them continue to move in a positive direction. Now, can they come a little bit more toward equitability? They probably could, right? So I would give the chief the flexibility and send her back with a sense of direction, right? And she can clearly articulate to them that this is where the council wants to be. And, they don't appreciate things dragging out to get there. And I think she can communicate that to them. And then see what happens from there, right?
Even been in this YouTube video.
I say with all due respect,
they-
I'd rather
they-
have clear
they can
orders
tune
of
in
what
this
you would like
council
me to
meeting.
negotiate than to kind of have me be the middleman.
No, I agree. I would like you to negotiate 272 each year or 202 and 342.
But if it's 202, 342 to throw something in there, then they can't
back out.
cancel. It has to be a 2-year contract in that instance. So they can do 272 and then, I guess, back out.
I guess Lindsay, maybe you can provide some clarification. Do we have to provide the cancellation clause in the 20 agreement, or Jim?
No,
We can remove that. But it is solid for 2 years.
It takes our option to terminate it out as well.
And that's fine.
Well, but we're
Yeah.
good.
Make it a 2-year agreement.
Yeah.
Then after the
Yeah.
2 years,
You
you can
revisit.
cancel it upon
Or renegotiate.
Yeah.
Renegotiate.
month notice.
Yeah.
And again, I was very clear to them that when this was over, it's likely that number will continue. I gave them no indication that we were stopping at 272.
Because if they keep going, we're probably gonna need to add more staff and then another fire truck and somebody's gonna pay for that and it better not be all.
Yeah. And we're
I just don't
monitoring
want that.
that there's a tipping point, obviously, where they need to stand their own service up. And we've had also those conversations with them because I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go with this contract. If they were gonna stand their own up, then I was gonna go ahead and just pull back and say, stand up your own service. So this isn't me trying to like maintain this contract with them. I found out first, do you have any intentions of standing your own fire department up? If so, when? And they said, we can show you a comprehensive plan. Like, we don't plan to grow to the level to be able to support our own department.
Well, and maybe, right, I mean, so I guess I feel like we've kind of exhausted the conversation and we're going over and over again. So I'm asking council whether I can or not. What do you guys think about my proposal that she go with the clear direction that it's 272 and 272 or 202 and 342?
And without a table.
And it's 3-year contract.
I like that.
I like.
Yeah,
that.
I like that as well. It gives her-
Table it until the next meeting after you've had a chance for that discussion.
So when does the 28E expire?
June
You don't
30.
wanna.
June 30.
June 30.
Okay, so they have to get back to you no later than what is the meeting in June?
15.
15.
Yeah, so we have to.
They have
Yeah,
to know
I'll get with them.
before the. Well, they have to know before the 10th, so you have time to get on the agenda.
Or June, they can get back to us immediately and we can put it on the next one.
Yeah, I think we can probably get something done sooner than later.
Be on
I'll message
June
Rita right
1st or
away.
2nd.
Okay, so I moved to table.
I would second.
All right.
Good.
Yeah.
I got a motion by Livingston, seconded by Reva to table. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Thank you.
Councilmember Baker,
Yes.
Reva, Reva, sorry, Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston,
Yes.
Lester.
No. All right, push the table. It's passes. Huh, I don't know what word I wanted to use there.
The table.
Is their next council meeting then Monday of next week?
Um,
Do you have their calendar?
most likely, yeah. I'm gonna send Rita a message right now to see if I can meet with her as soon as tomorrow.
Yeah, you may want to get on
Yeah.
their agenda
Yeah.
real fast if that's the case.
Yeah, 'cause it
The
would
next
have to
one's
be
not till
on-
after the end of, till the end of June and then.
Right.
I think it probably have to be on their agenda by tomorrow.
I'll message Rita right now and see if I can meet with her first thing in the morning.
Okay, ready to move on?
Yes.
All right, item 9J. It's the second reading of an ordinance amending the official zoning map of the city of Norwalk, Iowa by rezoning 250 Beardsley Street from agricultural reserve to R1 single family residential. So we've heard about this change at our last meeting. This property is just to the south of Beardsley at Clearwater Drive. Property is being rezoned to single family residential. Luke, you got anything to add?
Nothing. I think you got it covered.
All right, any discussion, questions for council?
It's both pieces of the map.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, since I was asked about my no vote last time, I will state for the record, the reason for my no vote being that I'm not in favor of the rezoning of this area and I am not in favor of the density.
Okay.
I'm not, we can discuss it. I'm not inviting discussion. I am just saying so that, since I was asked last time.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion? Comments, questions? Or public comment? Can I get a motion?
Second.
Motion by Reba, seconded by Baker. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Reva,
Yes.
Cool,
Yes.
Livingston, Lester,
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 9K. It's the second, possibly final reading of an ordinance regarding a zoning amendment related to facade material classifications and architectural standards. So we discussed this ordinance change at our last meeting. It's for the facade materials for the upper stories of commercial buildings. Luke, anything to add?
Yes, I did update the language in the code per the council direction of the motion approved last meeting. I did have to reword it a little bit with Jim's assistance. The request was to add a may into it so that we didn't require 85% class 3 and materials above. So I believe the language gets at that. We just had to craft it a little bit more uniquely. So.
Any discussion, questions from council or public comment?
Second.
Motion by Rivas, seconded by Baker. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston.
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Riva.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Would anybody like care to make a motion to waive?
Second.
Okay, so motion by Livingston, seconded by Baker to waive the third reading. Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Livingston.
Yes.
Lester.
No.
Baker,
Yes.
Riva,
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Item 9L. First reading of an ordinance amending chapter 177 rates and fees, providing for amended water, sewer, and solid waste charges. So we make adjustments to our water, sewer, and solid waste rates about this time, just about every year. So new rates will be effective July 1st. Jean, you got anything to add?
I do.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to mention that Central Iowa Waterworks discussions continue. A target date for that at this point is January 1, 2025. It really won't change a lot of what we do as far as setting rates. But we'll probably have more fixed costs than variable costs when we join them, probably similar to WRA. So I just wanted to mention that. It's been an ongoing discussion and we've been in contact with Des Moines Waterworks. So that is something that's proceeding. I also mentioned to Luke today, one thing about these rate increases for water and sewer, not recommending any for stormwater. They're driven really by capital projects. You know, the water tower and our expansion of our sewer system. Those are kind of the main reason for these increases and the recommendations for those. I think our growth, if we weren't doing any capital, we probably wouldn't have to increase these rates. So just kind of something to keep in mind. And I'll just kind of highlight a few things. As far as water, summer 22 was a really dry season. We exceeded our capacity. Our capacity is 1.965 million gallons per day. We exceeded that 15 times last year. Our highest being 2.8 million gallons. Of course, what that does is that causes us to pay a higher, it was high, purchase with storage rate, which they call a blended rate. And that went up about 5.8%, from 355 to 377 per thousand. And that happened April 1st. We continue, irrigation is kind of a significant factor, but we have been able to offset that with some revenues. We charge $2 above the rate that we charge everyone per thousand. Last year, we brought in about 69,000 additional dollars for charging that. And then the usage I noticed has kind of tapered off a bit. We have more customers, of course, but I think it's kind of working and doing what it's supposed to do, that policy that we put in place. So again, let's see. So I'm recommending a 4% increase and 50 cents, to the water availability rate. And then keep the irrigation rate at the $2 per thousand on top of that. So the rates would be for water, $7.61 per thousand is the current rate, would go to $7.91. We would also increase the large quantity. Those who use 15,000 gallons or more per day, we always try to make sure that they're paying a fair rate. Hope I'm saying that right. And we want to make sure they're covering their costs for Des Moines Waterworks. And we figured that's about $1.08. So they would go from 456 to 485 per thousand. And then the availability from $6 to $6.50 is what we're recommending. And again, maintaining irrigation at $9.61 to $9.91. because the regular rate would go from $7 to $7.91, so then $2 more. What that would do for an average homeowner that uses 5,000 gallons per month would be about $2.02 to their average bill. That's for water. I did give you a copy of the cash flows. And also kind of giving you a summary of where our water goes, or where their dollar goes when they, meaning the residents. I don't know what I did with that. Right here. So the Des Moines Waterworks cost is about 42% of our budget. Capital costs are about 27%. Maintenance is about 3%, and then operations about 30%. Again, the main driving factors are capital projects, the big one being the water tower. We are budgeting for a 1 million gallon tower to install one. Wayne indicates that he met with engineers. They're interviewing for engineers of who might do that project. McClure has done our hydraulic study. There's indications that we might need a bigger tower, so more like 1.5 million gallons. We don't know that quite yet, but we have money in the budget to purchase land this year, to start engineering next year, and then anticipate completion of that tower being built by 2026. So, if you have any questions on the water increases?
So that was 2.8 million gallons on April 1st. Are you sure that wasn't a April Fool's joke from Waterworks?
Yeah, no, the 2.8 was July 21st.
July 20.
What happened April 1st was the blended rate
Gotcha.
increased from 355 to 377.
Okay.
That's just like the schedule that Des Moines Waterworks
All right.
runs on.
Other questions?
I just want to say that in total, I think everything looks good rate wise. I still think that we should be presenting it to public as you're paying this much for capital and this much for operating. Breaking the rates out separately. I just don't think it's fair to charge one rate and I don't know. For me, I still think you should be breaking those out. So.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Motion.
Motion by Livingston, seconded by Reva. Any further discussion?
Did you want me to talk about sewer or garbage or recycling? I'm recommending those be increased as well.
I think
No.
everybody's good.
Okay.
Unless you really want to talk about.
I'm
The memo was very detailed, so.
All right, Lindsay, would you call roll?
Councilmember Lester?
Yeah.
Yes. Did you say yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Baker,
Yes.
Reva, Cool,
Yeah.
Livingston.
All right, motion carries. Item 10 is future agenda items. So the purpose of this item is for council to give direction staff by way of motion to have items placed on future agendas. It's not for discussion of the merits of the subject matter for tonight. So any future agenda items for tonight? Hearing none, we will move on. So item 11, council inquiries and staff updates. Before we get started with updates, I want to take a moment to recognize our number 4 in the country. City Clerk Lindsay Offenberg. Well, in light of the recent proclamation recognizing Clerks Week, there is a National Municipal Clerks Honor Roll, and Lindsay made that list. She was among 2 out of the state of Iowa, so that made the top 5.
All right.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
And thanks
Thank you
for all
all.
you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Will it be an autograph session? You can follow.
So Wayne was supposed to have a Highway 28 traffic signalization improvement project update. So I think that's probably Luke.
Oh, I would like to provide that update. He was gonna give me some information ahead of time and I apologize, but I don't have that. So we're just.
It's in there.
It's in the packet.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't
I
go
missed
over it
it.
with him, so it's.
Click on it on your screen and bring it up.
I didn't.
I didn't see that as a clickable thing.
Quick read.
It showed up this morning, right?
Yeah.
It's nothing clickable.
Why is
It is for me.
Fine.
Oh,
You might
go
have
to
to
Go to the
today's
new agenda.
Yeah.
I did not do
Yeah.
that.
Website. Go to the- That's what I did.
Awesome.
Yeah, Snyder, he got this late last night, which is why you just got it this morning, but he did think it was a well-written memo from Snyder and thought it would explain everything.
Okay.
If you had questions, though, he said you could send him an email.
So read that,
Easy read.
easy read. If you have questions, send it to Wayne.
Next.
Okay, so next, Luke.
Yes, I'm gonna go through my condensed list. Some upcoming work sessions. We're gonna flesh out the vibrant downtown conversation. We talked about vibrant can mean different things. Are we talking about the downtown up here at North and Main, or we're talking about the downtown uptown? So we're gonna flesh that out a little bit. Also, Greg is so excited to talk about UTVs. So we look forward to that. And then property assessments. Ed, I think you brought that up. You thought it might be a good idea to do a 101. We're going to expand on that a little bit, do a little educational 101 about property assessments. We're going to invite Janet Bunce, our assessor, to show up and answer a few questions.
Good.
I'm sure she'll be excited to do that. And as part of that, a little bit of strategy planning because of the new legislation and how it leads to our dollars next year, and ongoing staffing requests from our department heads. Want to do a little strategy planning so that we can all be best prepared for budget planning this next year. And then local option sales tax policy discussion. Stephanie, I think that's something you brought up. So I think that comes up in July or August when we have that work session.
So July or September.
And then the last thing, I sent out an email to everybody about civility in local elections. I thought that would be a good reminder, given some of our discussions earlier about some of the trends we're seeing on social media. I sent out, it was an invite. It looks like it's free of charge, so I encourage anybody to participate in that. Fortunately, I cannot be there, otherwise I would attend.
I've heard that city council meetings in Hartford, if you see them on YouTube, can be very entertaining. So they are not very civil. I going along with that, I appreciate the way we operate. So I think we're very respectful of each other. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that
was rude.
No,
Be civil.
that was, but all excellent comments and well received. I hope that folks take the time to do that. I also wanted to note that I had a chance to talk with Travis Stanley at the Run Norwalk event. And he mentioned that this was a topic that came up several times during the DC trip. And so he engaged saying, Luke, is that something you think that the city of Norwalk would want to work with, maybe even the school board? And I said, absolutely. So there may be other things ongoing that we can just help promote others to operate as we do.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you, Jackie.
So today was the first day of state track and I don't have a dog in the fight. However, the girls mostly competed today and Norwalk's shuttle hurdle relay team had the second fastest time in school history and qualified for finals on Saturday. Claire Farrell, who is a senior and I believe has a full ride scholarship for track to KU. She has a finalist spot in the 100 and the 200 and a state champion in the 400 meter dash with a time of 55.62.
Wow.
There you go. Most of the boys events are tomorrow and then finals are on Saturday.
Cool.
Yeah, Norwalk had a lot of kids go to state track.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's a great deal. Thank you, Brian.
My talking quota was way overdone tonight.
Okay. All right, if you think so. Lindsay.
I do have a few things. Just an FYI, Home Serve is going to be doing their next mailing that will actually go out tomorrow, and then they'll do a reminder 1 month after that. So if you get some calls, they forewarned us. Income offset is the time of year that we are starting to collect a lot of money through income offset because people have filed their taxes and are starting to get their tax returns back. So it's a good thing for revenues, a bad thing for staff who has to bear with the mean calls that they get. So next time you see Kaylin and Miranda, tell them they're doing a good job for me. Elections, they are coming up. So deadline for your paperwork to be turned in, because we have 3 of you down there at the end, is September 21st at 5 o'clock. And then Luke Paris and I are going to be doing we're going to have a meeting with the special census people next week. And we'll provide an update after that to you all.
Thank you. Jean.
We're very pleased. We have 2 interns this summer for 11 weeks. And we have 2 great hires for that. They were funded outside of the city budget. One was a mini grant from the Library Foundation, and the other was a mini grant from the Catherine Project. And they are supervising the activities of 16 youth volunteers in grades 6, 7, and 8 this summer. So that will help support the programming that we have. And I did deliver to each of you a summer flyer with the June, July activities. There's 113 great programs, so we hope to see you at some of those. There's also a flyer about our donut fundraiser. We know you love donuts more than you love books, so please. So do I possibly sometimes.
Donuts is so satisfying.
Basically, it's through Krispy Kreme, and anyone can purchase a dozen donuts online, get a code to take to the nearest Krispy Kreme that you happen to be near. You get your donuts, and the Library Foundation will get $7.50 back. So please purchase donuts and eat them and enjoy them.
So if I buy 2 dozen, do you get 15?
We sure do.
All right.
All right. Hope we write you down for that. Also, there is a book sale at the library, and it'll be tomorrow from 10 to 6 and Saturday 10 to 4. And if you come on Saturday, there is a bonus Catterday, so there will be cats and books. That's it for me.
Right. Thanks.
Thanks.
Robin.
June 2nd, the pool will be open. Next week, we're starting lifeguard training. Yesterday, we did cashiers and concession stand training. Summer playbook is out, and new this year, we separated all the aquatic information and sent out an aquatic playbook. So both of those are out. I'm working on the fall one next. So yeah. Volunteers are currently planting flowerbeds and containers in the parks. And Dakota will be treating the ponds for cattails. They're getting pretty bad at City Park and Warrior Park. And that will be within the next 30 days. He has that on his radar. Oh, and Stephanie gave me the Greater Des Moines Regional Trail Map, and we are in there. Great Western Trail and some of the other, Elizabeth Holland is in there. So yeah, it's kind of exciting.
Good. Good. Thank you. Chris.
So a few things Holly wanted me to mention. Bearway's going to have a groundbreaking on May 30th at 11 a.m. So public's welcome to attend that. And parking is going to be available along the new Chatham East and Hughes Drive. So if you want to attend, that's where you're going to want to park. We've got some proceedings for Marriott Fairfield Development Agreement and the Sportsplex Concession Agreement coming up on future agendas here on, so the 1st and the 15th. So be looking for those. Heartland Sports Turf Fields, they're still on track for a soft opening next month. So looks like they've got one first pot, I think might be done. We were out there last week, and they were getting it all stitched into place and doing what they had to do. And then they got the second pod down. I saw that, or most of it anyway. So they should be playing baseball out there next month, probably first part or middle of June. So that'll be exciting.
As far as the certified site goes, Luke and I had a really productive meeting on Monday or Tuesday with Tom Dunn and his lawyer. And it's kind of like, you know, they launched that boat, they knocked the chuck off and it finally gets going. That's kind of how it felt. But Tom gave us the go ahead, get the engineers out there in the field, and I contacted them, and they're all ready to go. In fact, one of them gave me a timeline here. Let me get it pulled up. So wetlands work's going to start May 30th, 31st. And then with a backup date of June 5th, the phase 1 ESA, they're going to get out there and meet with, I think they're going to meet with Tom on that. And then the rest of it's going to start June 12th to the 16th. So those are the important environmental studies that they have to do. They'll go out and take the studies and then go back and analyze them and give us the results that go into this certified site book that we have to turn in. So it's very important to get those on their calendars because they start to fill up this time of year. So I really appreciate the engineers holding spaces on their calendars to get us spots out in the field. So that's exciting. Jim, I think I gave you some information on survey. We don't need to do the Alta survey.
Okay.
But we can just do a regular survey. I gave you the criteria, but I can resend that.
Okay.
So it's really starting to move now, which is kind of exciting. And I appreciate Luke setting up that meeting with Tom because I think that really helped get things moving.
I thought the best thing about that meeting was a farmer was giving consent to allow the engineers to go out in that field after it's been planted. Oof. So I feel like that meant a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very productive. So
Good deal. Thank you. Jean.
I've been working with Luke on the new legislation that passed about property taxes. It's kind of funny. We both had very different looking spreadsheets, but we came up with the same numbers. So I thought that was pretty, because that language is like reading double Dutch. So kind of scary. And then I've been working with Robin on the field house pay apps. You're going to see a lot of pay apps coming through for the field house in the next meeting and then probably thereafter. And yeah, we're trying to keep track of it all. So there's a lot there.
Okay, thanks.
But
Chief.
Citizens Academy applications are still being taken. We have plenty of room, so if you know anybody, please invite them to apply or come yourself. We're doing lunch with the police with the second grade. We've completed 9 visits. We have 2 to go so far. Round deep dish Chicago pizza is the best meal. Comment on which one's the worst. But the government says they're all nutritious. You may have noticed that we are hiring a police officer. That is not a new position. That is a replacement for an officer who didn't make it through field training. We have 7 or 8 applicants so far. Applications close on June 2nd. That's all I have.
Thanks. Pete.
Call volume's down, mutual aid's down, but growth in the community is up. So our fire inspector and staff have been busy with plan review and code enforcement, that sort of thing. Commercial level company inspections are happening right now. We do those annually where we send the fire crews into the community to do inspections of all of the commercial buildings to make sure that they're adhering to the fire code. We are also accepting applications right now for a lieutenant's process. I think we have 5 applicants so far, and that'll close on June 2nd. So we hope to fill that position soon after that. Thank you.
Thanks. Carrie.
Yes, thanks for approving the job description for the information technology specialist. And I will, I think we actually decided on manager in information technology. IT manager, yes. So I will get that posted probably on Monday and have it closed towards the end of June. So I'll have it open for a month. So we'll get some good applicants and yeah, looking for start date probably August to September.
Good.
All
right, Luke.
Yeah, so we've got 9 building permits or residential building permits halfway through May. So that, again, keeps us kind of on track with our average numbers. So that's good. Normal nuisance grass mowing stuff going on. with things growing a lot more, trying to be proactive along some of our main corridors like Sunset Drive.
This is kind of a mess. I mean, I can't believe the number of unintended to.
Yes.
And like knee high, it's getting a little ridiculous. I mean, not a comment on you guys.
Nope.
I'm just saying in general in the city, it's getting kind of ridiculous.
Feel free to let us know if you've got one you really want looked at.
Oh, okay.
If people
Start
think we're
taking my
doing-
notes on my one.
Do people actually think we're doing no mow?
We didn't end up putting anything out because we hadn't gotten a lot of complaints about it. I do wonder if some of it is related.
I wonder if it is too.
So,
Although interestingly enough, there's been some follow-up to that really it's not good for the environment or for your lawn.
yeah, I'm skeptical that letting your grass grow long does much for bees, but
Yeah.
neither here nor there.
Some of the people actually gave up on no mow May.
Yeah,
I assume within their household, there was probably discussion about, weeds and grass height.
good.
Or maybe from their neighbors.
Yep, that's possible too, but yeah,
Potentially the city.
it does little or nothing to help the bees.
Owner of Dimples Dentistry contacted the city and they are working to do a repair replace of the private drive approach to Colonial. So I know that one's always been kind of an issue at times and stuff, so hopefully, I don't know exactly what they're proposing yet, but just good to get some attention on that. Lots of construction going on at Norwalk Central Fieldhouse site and the Fairway site. You've probably seen lots of stuff going in and out of there, and we're working with all those contractors to collectively try and get a strategy to keep everything clean and get them out there to clean up roads when they track dirt and mud. You're going to see a lot of that as we continue to have a wetter few months. Once it dries out into the summer, it'll probably be less issues with mud, lots of dust probably. Working on what's in the NRCS, we had a good meeting with them, Tony and Melissa and I, about the next steps for the easement rights we need to acquire for the North River Sewer. So we're really kind of in the last phase of that. Still gonna be a lot of work to do with it, but light at the end of the tunnel at least. And then I've been working on an affordable housing analysis and just some interesting price point numbers initially from that stuff that I've gathered. Median sale price of new construction within the last 2 years was $376.
Wow.
So that's pretty high. We had 20 sales that were under 300,000. Only 5 of those were single family homes, and 13 of the sales under 250 were all townhomes. So hitting that kind of affordable market of that 250 area, at least with recent sales data, is definitely more of that townhome product. So.
Thank you. Ed.
Well, one important thing. Got a granddaughter graduating from high school Saturday, so we'll be headed to Dayton, Ohio. So. And then the last thing is I want everybody to know that I have turned in my petition of candidacy to the city clerk, right? To be forwarded on to the county clerk or the county, election officer at the appropriate time. So the hat will be in the ring. We'll see what happens.
All right. Sounds good. David?
Nothing today.
Credit for getting us into the street collectives map goes to Elliot because he provides that information to the street collector of the MPOs. Just want to give Elliot recognition for that. And then for June, July, always a lot of great programs at the library, but I just want to point out one for people who really like 804 Maine egg rolls that Chef Jeremy will be showing you how to make your egg rolls, and you get to assemble your own and take them home. So
When is that?
it is Wednesday night, June 14th at 6:30 p.m. Yeah, we're registered.
Thank you.
Wow. All right. I like those.
For your next meeting, the city will purchase the property at North and Cherry. And you approved about a month and a half ago, and it's going forward. So plan is getting that in our hands, and I think the plan is then turn around and rent it out because we don't need to demolish it at this point in time, and we'll make a little bit of money off of it, hire a rental company to take care of it for us. So that's the plan there. Our nuisance property south side of town is progressing. There's gonna be a sale of that real soon. I know there's a purchase agreement that's been entered into, and there's already some cleanup and then there's junk removal on the outside.
Wow.
Progressing, so it's good. It doesn't look good, but it's looking better.
Yeah. I think they've been getting stuff out from inside as well, because they had a roll off there and I think it was full and that guy went in there now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can imagine, but yeah, so that is progressive. That's good news.
Good deal. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, thanks. Got a couple things. Number one, Luke and I are gonna go to lunch with the new superintendent next Thursday, so we'll get to meet him and that should be a good time. Speaking of Luke, I would just like to thank him. You know, I have a script that I do and Luke is in there. I asked Luke to edit it and he put some good stuff in there every time, so thank you. And I would like to just recognize Chief Porter. Chief is the vice chair of the 911 Service Board. And the chairman actually resigned. There were two paths that I think that were discussed as far as how to take. And the first path was Chief Porter could be the vice chair, could be elevated to chair, and then they elect a new vice chair in November. No, they would elect a new vice chair now, who would then go to be chair.
Bylaws are
November.
kind of weird. It would have pushed me out of
Yeah.
a position in November,
She would,
essentially.
yes. The other option that was discussed was leave the chairmanship open, let Chief Porter be acting chair and continue as vice chair. That was overwhelmingly supported. There were lots of comments from the sheriff and the other chiefs in the county that they like the direction that Jen has been taking the board. So I think that was awesome. And
Yeah.
I think you're doing a great job with that. So I just
Thank
want to
you. I
recognize
appreciate
for
that.
that.
Thank you.
She has some potential.
Uh-huh. For sure. So that's all I had. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Rivas, seconded by Livingston. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same. Motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:26 PM.